Hi, it's me, Jazzy. I'm back with another tech-related video, and today I'm taking a look at something I found on AliExpress. Now, quite often when I get a spare 5 minutes, I'm often found browsing through AliExpress looking for cool or interesting stuff, and I came across this XY6008. Now, this is a DC power supply based on a buck step-down converter. Now, depending on how much input you give it, it's capable of a maximum of 60 volts, 8 amps, and 480 watts. Now, it's a nice looking little unit with the ability to set precise voltage and current. You can set a fixed voltage or current. It comes with a remote control and Wi-Fi. So it wasn't a massive amount of money, this. It cost me £23.09 for the buck module and £5.79 for the case. With a bit of tax and a bit of shipping, set me back a total of £43.59. Now, this device does require an unregulated DC power supply to give it some input. And the buck converter turns this unregulated power supply into a fully blown adjustable power supply. Now, one extremely useful feature on this is the ability to set an overpower protection on the input. So if your unregulated power supply can't manage the full 480 watts that this unit's capable of, you can set that in the interface. So say if your power supply is only capable of 200 watts, you can set that limit and protect your back-end power supply. Now, I'll be using a linear power supply for my back end because I've got something I put together a while ago with a couple of transformers in it, but you could use a switch mode if you prefer. And if you don't require so much power, you could even use this on a battery pack if you're out in the field away from the bench. So enough waffling, the 6008's arrived from AliExpress. Let's get it on the bench and unbox it. Right, here we go. The XY6008W. W for wireless, because I have the extra additional Wi-Fi module, which is an option on this. So it does up to 60 volts, up to 8 amps, and up to 480 watts, depending on what input you put into it. It's also conveniently got the stuff on the bottom there. There's also an app. I don't really want to download the app because they just want my data. So came in 2 parcels which arrived on 2 different days. So this is the XY6008W buck module, and this is its case. Let's have a look at the module first, shall we? Looks very nice. So you get a remote control, because you need a remote control for your DC power supply. So this is just the module. Oh, it looks very nice. I think we'll take a closer look at this. Some goodies, some little ICs and stuff in there, and tiny surface mount components. Get that under the microscope and have a look, just for fun. So we've got a nice little fan there. Very nicely done. We'll peel on the front. So it's just to adjust our voltage and stuff. Okay. Now, what we want to know, what you've got to watch with some of these Chinese ones is, does it take, yes it does, take a standard 4mm banana plug. Fantastic, because some of them are manufactured with such tight tolerances, it's difficult to get a standard banana plug in the front. The other thing, of course, is, does it have the standard spacing? It does. It has the standard spacing, 3/4 inch or 19mm. Perfect. That's 2 questions answered straight off the bat. So this, you can make a programmable DC power supply out of this. Why you would need Wi-Fi on it, I don't know. Oh, this is only 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi module though, so it's pretty basic, but I'm still not 100% on why I would want Wi-Fi on my DC power supply. So the TTL cable there. That's where you connect up your Wi-Fi module. There's a 10 amp removable fuse down in there. And that's what they describe as the TTL communication interface. And you've got a nice remote with proper buttons, which is nice to see, rather than those membrane ones that you tend to get on these cheap little remotes. Right, let's see what's in the other box. So this is the case. Now it's not just a case, it's also got an input control board for the supply that you're putting in. So I had a quick look at it just to make sure it wasn't damaged or anything on arrival before I started the video, because it does happen sometimes. But no, very nicely packed from AliExpress. Now it's already pre-assembled. The listing did hint that I had to assemble all that myself, but it actually arrived exactly like this. So you've got the input control board already installed, the fan's already pre-installed and connected up there, and you've just got two wires here which are going to go to this module. Now there is some diagrams on the AliExpress listing explaining how to hook this up. I mean, it's very nicely, the case is quite nice, it's all right, it's pretty solid. You've got multiple connection options on the back. You can power it off a battery pack, apparently. You can power it from USB-C, good old barrel jack, or just screw terminals. And the output you get from this will depend on what input you're going to give it, which we'll look at in a moment. Okay, so as you can see from the photograph, couldn't be easier to hook this up. You've got the two wires here coming from the input board, and they just go into this screw terminal here. So you can take this little plug out. There we go. And you can see it's nicely marked. It's labeled up in there. You've got in plus and in minus. So you can't really go wrong with that. And that is literally all the connections you need to do. Everything else is pre-installed. That was a pleasant surprise because I thought I would be having to screw the fan in and all sorts of stuff, but no, it's all ready to go. And this little slot here is for the Wi-Fi card. There's another board inside. You can see here there's another layer. You can see from the photo on the listing, actually, there's another board inside which deals with the front panel controls. This is all to do with the power supply end of things. Right, I've come over to the other bench with our XY6008 because I'm intrigued by the amount of tiny surface mount stuff on this, so I want to have a closer look. Right, let's bring out the Tomlov 4K autofocus microscope to have a closer look, shall we? There we go. Look how quick that focuses in straight away. It's fantastic. I think it's a really cool bit of kit, this Tomlov. And don't forget, if you want to pick yourself one up, we have got a discount code which I've linked in the video description down below, which is still valid until the 27th of March on Amazon, and it's also valid on the Tomlov official website as well, which again I'll link to that in the video description. There's the EG1163S, that's the step down DC to DC power management chip. Got a NCE 7560K MOSFET there. Here's our connector block that's going to go to the back panel, the input panel. You can clearly see which way round we need to go. And here's that removable 10 amp fuse that we talked about earlier. How cool is it seeing it this close up? Cinelink Wi-Fi 2.4 gigahertz. Okay, well, pretty basic, but there you go. That's the Wi-Fi module. So I did have somebody ask about the focal length on this scope, and as you can see, you can literally put the board like an inch away and it'll focus. Now, as for the focal length, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to swing this out a little bit, excuse my untidy floor. I'm going to put this right down on the floor here. Now, you might think I'm crazy, but just switch to the handheld camera. You can see the Tomlov has focused in on the buck module, perfectly in focus, and that is right down on the floor. So that's a distance of 33 inches or 83.5 centimeters from the bottom of the lens to the module on the floor. That's pretty impressive focal length. You can't argue with that. Now, we've had a look inside, let's put it together, shall we? So all we've got to do is wire up that connector now, which is pretty easy to do. We've just got to make sure we get the wires the right way around, obviously. So it's really easy, literally just put the wires into the connector block and do them up. There we go, that's the red. Tighten that up. That's great, that'll do lovely. And the black one in. Really easy this. I thought there'd be a lot more to putting this together. Tighten up that one. Perfect. Okay, looking good. Now, I'm not going to attach the Wi-Fi module at this point. I'm going to try it without it first because I'm still not convinced that I want to be putting my power supply on the Wi-Fi. Yeah, I'll have a think about that one. Right, let's get this connected up. So it's just this one plug that's got to go in. There's not much room because they've not given you a lot of length on the cable. So that just plugs in nice and easy. Just double check we've got them the right way around. Yep, plus there, minus there. Okay, great. So now we can clip the case together. That literally just clips in. Nice and easy. Great. Let's get that peel off. Oh yes, that's looking good. Actually looks a really neat little unit, this does. Now all I need to do is to supply it with up to 60 volts of power, which I have. So this is my 60 volt DC unregulated power supply that I put together a while back with a couple of transformers in it. And I've got it hooked up to this dummy load just for a quick test to see what it's capable of putting out, so I can set the current limit on my 6008 appropriately. So we've got 58.3 volts here at 2.5 amps. I'm going to increase the load now up to 3 amps, and we've got 56 volts at 3 amps. Okay, and I'm going to take it up to 3.5 amps. This is about as far as I want to take it up for testing. Right, so we are sitting at just under 55 volts there at 3.5 amps. So you can see the DC ripple on the scope there. So we've achieved 54 volts at 3.5 amps, giving us 190 watts. I reckon at a push we could get up to 200 watts at 52 volts, 3.7 amps. So connection's pretty simple on this. You've got multiple connection options on here. I've just gone with the screw terminals as I've got screw terminals on the back of my DC power supply here. Now, I've seen projects where people have put this actually into the housing with their transformers to make a complete power supply, and that's something I might look at doing at some point, but I'm quite happy with the separate boxes at the moment. It gives me flexibility if I wanted to hook this up to a different power supply, if I needed a bit more oomph from it. So let's have a look at our little box of tricks then. So let's power up the DC60. Here we go. Doesn't take long to start up, so here we go. Let's get in a bit closer on the XY6008. So nice clear display on the front showing volts, amps and watts. So we've got a rotary encoder here which you can use to change between the screens, and you've also got a push on there, so you can see that's gone blue down there. So you can move between volts and amps, and then if you press it again, so you can move the cursor. So it's almost like your fine and coarse adjustment, I guess. So if you're on this here, you can go up and down in greater numbers. Or if you go here, you can do your almost like your fine adjustment here, just by going on these digits here. And then you can change this if you wanted to do a really fine adjustment, but then if you want to adjust in greater value, you just go here. Press that and it's set. Shortcut buttons here for voltage set and current set. So it's pretty much using these buttons does the same thing as this. So if you press your voltage set, you can use the arrows to move this, but you still need to use this to select. It doesn't really matter whether you press the voltage set or the encoder. It's just more of a shortcut really to get from current to voltage, and this will turn your juice on and off. So on the display we obviously got volts, amps and watts, and then our setting area at the bottom for setting voltage and current. You've got a temperature display there which shows the temperature of the device itself, and you've got an on-off display there that shows when you've turned your power supply on, it'll go to on. You also get a light up here, and you can see it's displaying there that it's putting out 18.58 volts. So we'll take a closer look at that in a moment. But you can move between these screens here with the rotary encoder So you've got this one here, which is the capacity record interface. You can see your voltage input here, showing us 68.15 volts. Here you've got the voltage and current curve, which we'll take a closer look at in a moment. We'll hook up a load to this in a moment and have a look at the voltage and current curve. So you've also got another screen here where you've got some parameters that you can change. So on here you can change things like the input under voltage protection, the output over current protection, and that type of thing. And then you've got system parameters that you can change, such as backlight, brightness, temperature unit. You can switch between centigrade and Fahrenheit. You can turn the buzzer on and off, whether you want it to beep or not. You can change the background colors, the font colors. It's got a screensaver if you're using the Wi-Fi. So there's quite a few options that you can change on there, but I think for me, I'm pretty much going to be looking at the main screen and probably the power curve screen. I think they're the ones for me that I'm going to be using the most. So another cool party trick is the remote control, which I think that's actually pretty cool. Do you need a remote control for your power supply? Well, only time will tell. I guess it's convenient. It's also kind of fun. You can turn your power supply on and off. If you're going to have this hooked up to maybe some lights or something, which is why I'm thinking of using one of these to power some of my filming lights, and having a remote control could be convenient, that you can turn it on and off. You can also go and set your voltage and current from here. So if you go into voltage and I can tell it that I want 12 volts, okay, and on, and it'll give me 12 volts. So if I wanted to limit my current, I could go to current. I would like 1 amp please, and it'll change it down there. So then when you switch on, you've got your current limited to 1 amp. Okay, so let's see how accurate this is. Right, go DC volts. Okay, so we are currently set to 12, so let's switch on, and indeed, yeah, 12.05. Okay, it's clearly putting out 12 volts at the moment, so if I wanted to go to say 5 volts, I could do that. So I could do it on the remote. Set 5, okay, takes it down to 5 volts. Now that might be a little bit gadgety for some people, but I think that's pretty cool. I like that. So we can turn the power off, and I could say I want to change my current to 2 amps. Okay, and it'll change it down there. We'll put a load on it in a sec and have a look at the power curve, because that's quite cool as well. Right, let's turn it up to 60 volts. That's the maximum rated output for this XY6008. Voltage set. Right, let's go for the full 60. Set. On. Alright, 60 volts, 60 volts. So yeah, you have 10 memory positions there. You can see M1, M2, M3. You've got 10 different memory positions that you can save different parameters in. So you could save, maybe if you use quite regularly, say 12 volts at 1.5 amps, you could save that in one of the memory locations. And then sometimes you might want 5 volts at 2 amps. You could save that. That's pretty handy. So I think we'll hook it up to a load and see what it does, shall we? So the dummy load's gone back. That was only on loan. So I've just set up this resistor, which should be good for 6 amps. I've set the output power protection on the XY6008 to 50 watts for this first test, just to see if the output power protection is going to do its job and shut the power supply down to prevent any damage to it. So I've set my current limit on here to 1.1 amps. So as soon as we get to 1.1 amps, the voltage should drop on the display. There you go, voltage has dropped as we've reached the current limit. The power at the bottom is showing us 21 watts. Now I've got the output power protection set to 50 watts, so I need to increase the current so we can get up to 50 watts and see if this input protection is working. So I'll up the current limit to 3 amps so we can get to this 50 watts. So now we're drawing 22.8 watts. Let's move the slider down a bit more, heading for 50 watts. Right, so we've got 43 watts at 2.15 amps, but input current's only 0.6 of an amp because the buck is doing its job. Right, nearly there. Yep, there you go. Output power protection's kicked in. Power output goes off to protect the power supply. Perfect. Right now, I know my DC60 power supply is good for 190 watts because I've tested it. So let's set the output power protection to 190 watts. So we've got 190 watts of raw input. So we could, in theory, have, say, 50 volts at over 3 amps, or we could have 25 volts at 6 amps, just for example. Now this resistor is only good for 6 amps. So for this test, I'm aiming for 20 volts at 6 amps. I'm going to set my current limit to 6 amps, and let's switch on. Okay, we've only got 31 watts here, so let's move the slider down to increase the current. Okay, that's good enough. That's about as far as I need to push it right now. So you can see we've got 116 watts at 5.84 amps, but we're only taking 1.98 amps on the input. Great. Right, let's turn off. So let's have a look at this power curve graph screen. So let's turn our input on. Now, the yellow line is showing voltage and the blue one is showing current. There you go, you can see the graphs plotting the voltage and the current there. Let's have a quick look at the watt hours screen. You can see the inputs at 65 volts, 3 amps coming out, and you can see the ampere hours and the watt hours. So if I increase the current, you'll see it go up faster. Bring it back down and it'll slow down. Now it's just raising very slowly. Okay, I'd say successful test. There we go. So there you have it, the XY6008 from AliExpress. I think it's pretty neat. I love the form factor. I was torn whether to keep it in the case or to build it into something, but I actually quite like the case. It's quite a nice little unit. One thing I didn't mention in the video though, if you're going to build it in the little case like this, do put some rubber feet on because I find it's quite slidey. I nearly lost it off the desktop. It's fairly light and it's got a smooth plastic bottom, so it does tend to move about a little bit when you've got cables and stuff plugged in. So yeah, I do recommend putting some rubber feet on the bottom of this. Also love the little remote control. It's a gadgety thing, but I'm a sucker for a gadget, and I quite like being able to change the voltage and current and turn it on and off from the remote control. Now, we've looked at a lot of the features of this unit today, but you will see if you look through the instructions, there's a whole wealth of customizable options you can dive into. If I looked at them all, I'd be here all day. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video on this buck converter. As always, massive thanks to everyone for watching and subscribing. Always massively appreciated. I'll be back soon with some more tech related videos. And in the meantime, take care and I'll see you on the next one.